talk about something a little different on my channel this time. My favorite shows and movies and franchises could appeal to boys, appeal to girls, non-binary people, everybody. They had a unisex appeal. I didn't as much get into stuff that was either strictly boy-centric or strictly girl-centric, but I'm not against those existing, just as long as there are options. You know, with some exceptions, I like the stuff that had more of the variety. It could appeal to everyone. For boy-centered franchises, I wasn't into G.I. Joe, I wasn't into Transformers. I have some vague memories of watching a few episodes of He-Man and really liking it. For girls' franchises, never got into Rainbow Bright, never got into She-Ra, never ever got into My Little Pony. Sailor Moon I really liked as a kid, but it wasn't on that frequently or consistently, so I didn't see a lot of it. And I tried rewatching it in high school, and I found it very irritating. But I do think it's got a very nice aesthetic. I think the designs are great. That's my stance on that. And kudos if you like it. But I wanted to talk about Barbie. That's probably the most girl-centric franchise I did really get into. It's not so much my thing anymore, but it's another one I think, you know what, it's a fun aesthetic, and it's changed so much over the years. It's got a really interesting history. I love the history to it. Growing up, mostly what I liked was, when I would play with them, I really liked mysteries, so I would have them act out mysteries. I really liked dressing them up. As you can tell, and even to this day, I still really like fashion. I think it's a fun way to express yourself. Clothes are very interestingly made. There's a lot of design and thought and craft that gets put into it. I obviously like bright colors. What's cool about Barbie is that you can put yourself in that role. I couldn't do that so much with television shows, but I could do that with toys. I liked the variety of ways you could dress her up. I liked the variety of environments you could put her in. It definitely encouraged creativity, and it definitely encouraged storytelling. I liked that. There were a lot of really cool stories with Barbie and the various characters. The ones I saw, there are actually plenty of adults who are into the franchise, who are collectors. That's really cool. I think I'm more fascinated, as an adult, I think I'm more fascinated by the history, the fashion, the aesthetic, and what changed over time. But as a kid, I thoroughly enjoyed it. There's been a lot of controversy with Barbie, whether or not she's a good role model, and whether or not she imparts a unhealthy, unrealistic body image issues, or something of that nature. To me, nobody ever told me I was expected to look like that, so that stuff was always very confusing to me. No one ever said, oh, you have to look like this. That was something I never really struggled with. And I remember I saw this meme where people were saying, oh, this is Barbie. For a long time she's been criticized because she sets unrealistic beauty standards for women. This is He-Man. Has He-Man been criticized for that, for imposing unhealthy standards for boys? I don't know. I will say, it is really nice that nowadays Barbie does come in a lot of shapes and sizes. This wasn't just a problem, I wouldn't say it was a problem just with her, because if you had the doll, that's one thing, but there wasn't a lot of options for toys, period. A lot of them did tend to look the same. A lot of them were just this one standard model. I like that there is more variety nowadays. As a kid, I definitely didn't think about that. I just watched a few of the movies, played some of the CD-ROM games, and even then, I know how much there is. I didn't even see a lot of them, but the ones I saw I did really like. For the movies, I liked Barbie as Rapunzel. I liked their take on the story. It was nicely paced, had a compelling villain. What was really, really cool about that take, and I haven't seen this take done in other Rapunzel stories, but in Barbie's take, Rapunzel was a painter, and she gets this magic paintbrush that can teleport her anywhere. She thinks of something, paints it, and it appears. She can travel to that world. That was a really cool idea. And I wanted that paintbrush. It would definitely improve my drawing skills, that's for sure. That was really creative. I liked that take on it. I liked how, spoiler alert, the villain is defeated by essentially, similar to what's done in Aladdin, she's tricked into defeating herself. I thought that was a really creative way around it. They had a really unique, fun take on the story. The other one I saw was Barbie as the Nutcracker. I have far more fuzzy memories of that, probably because I didn't watch that video nearly as frequently, but I remember really liking it. It had a nice aesthetic, told the story well. It was pretty, it was fun, and it was a genuinely nice retelling of the story. The CD-ROM game I've talked about previously on my channel was my favorite, which was Detective Barbie. Part of the appeal was that she could say your name if you put it in. That was really cool, and she said your name throughout the game. The plot of the CD-ROM game, yes, CD-ROM game, this was from the 90s, was Ken was the chairman of the carnival. He gets kidnapped. Barbie, with her assistant Becky, has to find him through this abandoned carnival. There was both a creativity, a beauty, but also a creepiness, probably because it was an abandoned carnival. Has a little bit of that American Horror Story feel. But I like that contrast, the beauty and also the creepiness. There's also a shadowy figure that you see a couple times throughout the game that did creep me out as a kid. But overall, it was a really fun game, really straightforward, easy to play, thoroughly enjoyable. I will say, Barbie is not so much my thing now in the stuff I do get into nowadays. I'm interested in how she's changed over the years. I'm interested in the history and the culture that shapes what she is. Of course, the fashion aesthetic. That's always fun. It's kind of funny, fashion for such a long time. I think this was a reaction to the consumerist culture from the 80s. Fashion and fast fashion became associated with being vapid and not very smart, not very deep. I guess the modern word for that is basic. But I'm seeing some of that die down. I don't see that stereotype nearly as frequently anymore. Especially because fashion is such a great way to express yourself. It is such a great way to play with color and try on different aesthetics, play with different aesthetics, showcase your personality, dress up, and try on different personalities, becoming your own Barbie doll, I guess. And there really is a lot of craftsmanship that does go into really, really nice clothing. There's something you can really appreciate with that, how it's made, the colors, how you can embellish your own clothing. I mean, even tie-dye, something that's done at a lot of summer camps. Even boys get in on it. That's a really creative thing to do, because no two really look the same. It's a great tool. And that's really why Barbie's lasted for so long. I like that she, especially today, comes in a lot of different shapes, sizes, colors, hair colors, styles, aesthetics. It, especially today, shows what you can really do, and you can play with so many different identities. You can put yourself in a lot of different roles, and that's always what was so great about it. I liked having her solve mysteries. I liked playing the detective games as a kid. And I can really respect something with so much history that people still like after all these years later. This was, as a kid, probably the girliest franchise I really got into. Okay, maybe with the exception of Disney Channel, some of that aesthetic. But it's nice to have around. interesting to learn that there are a lot of subcultures around such a simple idea. It's so tough to create something that's so simple and so memorable. So it's interesting to see how we got to that point. The controversies around Barbie definitely didn't affect me. I never felt like I had to look like her. Nobody in my life ever had that standard. I don't think anyone that I knew was ever into that aesthetic, male or female. So, it's a fun doll. A lot of creativity around it, very memorable. There is a lot that can be done with this character. There's a lot that has been done with this character, and there's a lot that will be done with this in the future.